The Pueblo people have suffered enormous loss and unwelcome change at the hands of invaders. Invaders who have continued to come to their lands for over 500 years. But they have consistently resisted the many assaults on their land, their language, their religion, and their values.
We still speak our language, and we do our songs and our dances, and we wanted everybody to know that, especially our young people. In 1680, we were fighting with bows and arrows. Today, we fight the United States Congress, the state government, with resolutions, with lawyers, and through the media.
For thousands of years, until the 16th century, the Pueblo people, my people, lived well in the world they had built in the low mountains and deserts of the Southwest. Drought and conflict over hunting and water with nomadic tribes made them move every several hundred years. But they had established a good life in many places, large communities, a good and steady trade that went clear to the Pacific Ocean and back again, a rich, demanding, and important ceremonial life.
To Pueblo farmers, the community was the center of the universe, seen and unseen. From the navel of Mother Earth, they had emerged into the earth as we know it, with the underworld below and the sky above. Ceremony and ritual expressed in song, dance, and prayer, in the kivas or sacred places and other shrines and special places, kept the world ordered and safe.
By 1500, over 100,000 Pueblo people lived in 100 separate self-governing communities. Their struggle for self-determination came when the Cueco came with their horses, guns, swords, and their crosses, looking for goods, gold, and souls to conquer.
As the European cultures came in here, they came in with the idea of either or. It's either you or me, and we both can't stay here together. And also the idea of land, it's either mine or yours, but it can't just be left alone.
Armed men and missionary priests had come into their world, but now other people came, looking for gold and silver, fine fabrics, and valuable spices. They searched for 2 winters at Pecos, but returned because they found only things like turquoise, shell beads, kwa'a, grizzly bear teeth, keviwe, or turkey in cotton cloth, of various sorts. What happened at Pecos was the beginning of the conflicts and changes that occurred in the rest of the Pueblo world.
Now, children, the Spaniards came to settle here in 1598 and settled just a little ways across the river from this village. There was a difference in their value system and their way of life. They wanted to impose their Spanish religious and do away with the native system. The Pueblos, as they were, they suffered silently until a time in 1675, the governor and the padres realized that the Pueblos were not really accepting the Spanish religion. So they arrested 47 Pueblo leaders, and they were brought to Santa Fe for trial. 4 were condemned to die, and the others were to be whipped publicly. And among those whipped was a person from this village, a person by the name of Bobing. and the Spaniards call him Pope, and that is the way he is recorded in history, because the Spaniards wrote the history. Anyway, when Pope returned to his village, he decided that maybe there should be something done about the Spaniards, and began to meet with local people and eventually began to go to the neighbors. And they decided that 2 boys would be detailed to take message throughout the Pueblo. And the manner was to have the 2 boys take a deerskin strip with knots in it. And they were to tell the Pueblos that each morning as the sun came up, they were to untie a knot. And on the morning that the last knot was untied would be the beginning of the revolt. As a result, the other Pueblos learned about it and began to go to their padres and other Spanish families to ask them to leave. And if they didn't leave, they would suffer the consequences. After the Pueblo Revolt started, many of the Spanish families who had agreed to leave their living areas began to come into Santa Fe, the site of the capital, and they probably gathered here in this locale behind the palace. The battle continued on until the Pueblo people dammed the water that runs past the community of Santa Fe. And after a while, there was no more water available to the Spanish here and their animals. So that was when Governor Otermin decided to abandon the place. The Pueblo warriors watched the Spaniards leave Santa Fe, and they did not attack the people as they were leaving. On August 10, 1680, the only successful revolt by the natives of America against a power from Spain began. 21 priests were killed and something like 200 Spanish people were also killed. The Spaniards left New Mexico and the Pueblos began to have their own land again. They said peace had returned to the Pueblo country. And it was like this for 12 years.
The Pueblo Revolt of 1680, the first American Revolution for freedom, didn't last long. The Spanish reconquest into Indian country came again only a few years later, in 1692. Still, the invasion and the attempts to alter Pueblo life never ceased, and Pueblo resistance to that domination never stopped. In 1906, the U.S. Forest Service appropriated Taos Blue Lake, the sacred water spring of the Taos Pueblo people, and made it a part of the newly developed Kit Carson National Forest.
From the beginning of time, the Pueblo of Taos and his people and their elders before them, they were using this place known as Blue Lake area. And for religious purpose, man should have a privacy. Men should have a privacy to do their own talking to the Great Spirit.
The whole environment here is held so sacred that the people did not have a choice except to try to get it back somehow. And religious freedom is what really did made it possible for the congressman to realize we have this in our Constitution saying that American citizens are entitled to religious freedom.
Today, the Taos people, through a celebration, are expressing their gratitude to all the people who have helped them recover their sacred Blue Lake. And I think it's important for all of us to remember that the Indian people were the first inhabitants of this country, and that the Indian people desire and wish the help of all peoples to keep our way of life, to retain the rights that we have as Indian people, the land, the water, and especially the freedom to practice our Indian way of life.
I say to our youth that we live our Indian way throughout the year. It is not a one-day thing that we have here at Taos Pueblo, living our Indian way. And I tell them how that has a very direct link to the Blue Lake cause.
Our religion to us is sacred and is more important than anything else in our life.
Our happiness, our moral behavior, our unity as a people, and the peace and happiness of our homes
are all a part of our religion and are dependent on its continuation.
To pass this religion with its hidden sacred knowledge and its many forms of prayer on to our children is our supreme duty to our ancestors and to our hearts and to the God whom we know.
Our communities have survived. Our people are going to survive, I believe, if we're able to work with students in maintaining their tradition, maintaining their language, maintaining a way of life.
Can you imagine the type of language they spoke? How many of you how many of you speak your language?
Why are we as Native Americans required to learn about European history? I mean, it's required in all schools, but why don't they have to learn about our history?
Keep working, doing what you're doing. Don't stop. That's the only way you will gain what you put into your work. But remember too, this story and this advice, it is to become part of your ongoing work and struggle and resistance, just as it was passed on from the generations and generations of our grandmothers and grandfathers. Yes, Tenenyu, that way the people and the land will continue. Life will go on.